22 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Today's meeting in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, and today's meeting is televised.
J'ai pas de traduction, Monsieur le Président.
There's no interpretation, no translation. Once we've resolved the problem, shall we begin? Start over, Ms. Chabot?
Il n'y avait pas de traduction.
There was no translation, but it's now been resolved.
Translation now. Madame Chabot.
Tout est beau, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Everything's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, and this meeting is also televised. Should any technical challenges arise, please let me know. Please note that we may need to suspend a few minutes to ensure that all members are able to participate fully. Pursuant to Standing Order 81 sub 5, the committee will commence consideration of the Supplementary Estimates C 2020-21, Vote 1C under the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and Votes 1C, 5C, 10C, and 15C under Department of Employment and Social Development referred to the committee on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, and pursuant to Standing Order 81 sub 4, the committee will commence consideration of the main estimates 2021-22. Vote 1 under the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, votes 1 and 5 under Canadian Accessibility Standards Development Organization, vote 1 under Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, and votes 1 and 5 under Department of Employment and Social Development referred to the committee on Thursday, February 25th, 2021. I'd like to welcome our witnesses to begin our discussion with 5 minutes of opening remarks, followed by questions. We have appearing the Honourable Ahmed Hussen, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Evan Siddle, President and CEO, Lisa Williams, Chief Financial Officer, and from the Department of Employment and Social Development, Mark Perlman, Chief Financial Officer and Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Benoit Long, Chief Transformation Officer, Graham Flack, Deputy Minister, Employment and Social Development, Laurie McDonald, Senior Associate Deputy Minister, Employment and Social Development and Chief Operating Officer for Service Canada, Cliff Groen, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Benefits and Integrated Services Branch, Service Canada, Janet Goulding, Associate Deputy Minister, Income Security and Social Development Branch, and Catherine Adam, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Service Policy Branch. And with that, we will start with Minister Hussen for 5 minutes. Welcome back to the committee, Minister. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm happy to speak to the Supplementary Estimate C for 2020-2021 and the main estimates for 2021-2022 that pertain to my portfolio at Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC. Really saying that our lives have changed significantly over the last year would be an understatement.
However, our government's priorities remain focused on helping to protect Canadians' health and financial security. These priorities are supported by the appropriations requested in the main estimates, as well as the Supplementary Estimates C associated to the previous exercise. Today, I hope to be able to provide you with some overarching context and answer any questions you may have.
2022 main estimates. ESDC's main estimates for 2021-2022 present a total of $82.4 billion in planned budgetary expenditures. Over 95% of these expenditures will directly support Canadians through the department's programs, services, and initiatives. Before I address the supplementary estimate C, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that my department did not stop helping Canadians when Service Canada centers were forced to close due to the pandemic. On the contrary, we increased the number of call center agents and, when possible, simplified applications for certain benefits. We made it easier for Canadians to access services online while maintaining all the measures to safeguard private information. The 2020-2021 Supplementary Estimate C reflects these actions. The department requires additional funding to continue to improve client experience, both online and in person, as well as modernizing the way it delivers benefits. The department will continue to make sure Canadians have access to the benefits that they are entitled to. And I want to be very clear, the safety and well-being of Canadians remain the government's number one priority. The pandemic has certainly taught us the importance of having a place to call home. That is why the Government of Canada will keep investing in measures to address urgent housing needs. This includes continuing with our 10-year, $70 billion national housing strategy. We'll also continue to support communities to prevent and reduce homelessness and ensure the sector's ability to fight COVID-19 through increased investments in Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy. This will build on our existing goals by helping those in immediate need. It also advances the progress being made through Opportunity for All, Canada's first poverty reduction strategy, to reduce poverty and achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal to end poverty by 2030. We know that homeless Canadians are among our country's most vulnerable, and our government believes that no one anywhere in Canada should be left without a place to call home. That is why we are the first government in Canadian history to take responsibility, and we acted additional investments of nearly $400 million under Reaching Home. And in the fall economic statement, we would sustain our support into 2021 with an additional investment of nearly $300 million. This is on top of approximately $215.3 million invested annually into communities across Canada through Reaching Home from 2021 to 2024. At the same time, we will continue to invest in longer-term programs like the National Housing Co-Investment Fund and the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, for which funding is included in this year's estimates. Mr. Chair, the pandemic continues to have a tremendous impact on Canadian families with young children. For Canadian families, access to affordable, high-quality childcare is not a luxury, it is a necessity. We are laying the groundwork for a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system in partnership with provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, and nonprofit organizations so that every Canadian has access to high-quality, affordable, accessible, and inclusive childcare. And the Government of Canada is also proposing new temporary support of up to $1,200 per child under the age of 6 in 2021 to further assist families with young children. As well, during the pandemic, the Government of Canada was pleased to provide $350 million for the Emergency Community Support Fund to help organizations that are providing very critical services to vulnerable Canadians. The main estimates for 2021, 2022, and all of the items outlined in the supplementary estimates process today demonstrate our clear commitment to Canadians and to building back better. There's no doubt that the financial resources requested will enable us to continue to do this work. And Mr. Chair, I'll be very pleased to answer any and all questions you may have. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I expect we do indeed have questions. We're going to start with Mr. Viss for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister Hussen. Changes in non-budgetary planned expenditures reflect an increase in low-cost loans for the construction of sustainable rental apartment projects and for the construction, repair, and revitalization of affordable housing. That's the introduction from the main estimates document. I assume the first part of this increase for rental apartment projects is in support of the Rental Construction Financing Initiative announced in the 2020 Fall Economic Statement. Is that correct, Minister?
That's correct.
Thank you. Which other program is receiving funds for the low-cost loans outlined in the introduction beyond the RCFI?
I would turn it to either Deputy Graham or Mr. Siddall.
I guess that would go to Mr. Siddall then, yes.
There we go. That would be the National Housing Co-Investment Fund would be the other program through which we would give loans to low-cost housing, grants or loans, but loans as well.
Okay, thank you. Can you provide a breakdown of the $3.2 billion non-budgetary figure in the mains? A rough breakdown?
I can't offhand. I'm just looking to see if my CFO can. And if not, we can respond in writing. Lisa?
Yes, sure. So in terms of the 3.2, Mr. Viss, as Mr. Siddall had indicated, there's approximately $1 billion in relation to the co-investment fund. There are also monies in relation to RCFI, as you indicated, approximately $2.3 billion. And then there is also money in there for the first-time homebuyers program.
Thank you. Next question. The Rental Construction Financing Initiative appears to be one of the most successful housing programs under this government's national housing strategy. When it started in 2017, there was $2.5 billion allocated. This was then increased to 14 and now to 25.75 billion. Is this an acknowledgement by the government that working with the private sector is the best way to increase Canada's purpose-built rental housing stock? And secondly, is the government exploring other tools to encourage developers to increase the rental stock in this country, perhaps through tax incentives?
Well, it's an acknowledgement that the Rental Construction Financing Initiative works. Working with the private sector to build mixed housing or rental units, which also have a portion of deep affordability, is not the only way to address the housing crisis in our country. We have a number of programs, as you're aware, through the National Housing Strategy, but increasing a number of times the budget for the Rental Construction Financing Initiative is a simple acknowledgement of the incredible demand for this program in the private sector. And its effect on the ground. Yeah.
Thank you. Would it be fair to say that money is through the National Housing Strategy is going out the door faster through this initiative than any other program?
I wouldn't say that. The co-investment fund also is a very, very popular program that disperses loans and contributions and to forgivable loans as well as straight loans to proponents. They just happen to be mainly from the nonprofit sector, whereas the Rental Construction Financing Initiative is usually used by the private sector.
Thank you, Minister. Turning to the first-time homebuyers incentive. When I last received information on this government's first-time homebuyers incentive, it showed that over the course of 8 months, only 16 people had used the program in Toronto, and a single person had used it in Vancouver. No stakeholder that I've spoken with had a positive word to say about it. There are numerous reasons, but it boils down to the fact that it does not accomplish its primary objective of creating new first-time homeowners. Program users must already qualify for a mortgage to access it. No one who otherwise would be unable to purchase a home is now able to as a result of this program. What are the metrics, and this question is to Mr. Siddall, what are the metrics CMHC uses to determine if the program has been a success or a failure? The objective of this program, as stated in CMHC's 2019 annual report, was to assist 20,000 first-time home buyers in the first 6 months and 100,000 first-time home buyers from 2019 to 22. However, your amended corporate plan as submitted to the committee has TBD in the target column. Is CMHC's strategy to simply not establish a target so you can't be held accountable for failing to meet it? How many actually use the program in its first 6 months? Thank you.
Let me give you a partial response, and if it's incomplete, Mr. Viss, we're happy to respond subsequently. Those targets were established not by CMHC, but by the government. I will tell you that the number of approved applications so far have been over 10,000. The program has helped 10,648 Canadians, and it has advanced $193.4 million to them as of this moment.
Okay. Thank you. A follow-up question. I've heard from the mortgage brokers and from various banks that they incurred significant expenses to retool their IT setups in order to be able to provide their clients access to the first-time home buyers plan. Did CMHC or ESDC foresee this added cost, and did you chart out how these changes would impact the sector when the program started?
Minister, shall I respond?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we did. We had consultations with a number of financial institutions in advance of implementing the program. Every time we make any single change, there are system changes required of financial institutions. That's not new information.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to add, Mr. Chair, if I can.
I have a tiny bit of time left, so I'm going to ask one more question.
No problem.
On the Rapid Housing Initiative, the government's response to my recent order paper question seeking clarity on the Rapid Housing Initiative's project stream was unhelpful. With the exception of Quebec projects, the city and even the province of all projects was redacted. During her appearance before the committee on the February 4th, Ms. Rami Bauer, Senior Vice President at CMHC and future CEO, indicated that the government was on track to meet its RHI objectives. Is this still the case? Will all funds be allocated by March 31st? How many units have been funded so far? Will CMHC commit to providing the committee with a complete unredacted list of the funded projects? And is the government planning a second round of funding for the project stream of the Rapid Housing Initiative in its upcoming budget, if we ever see it? If so, could the details be provided to this committee in advance? Thank you.
Okay, we are well past time. There has been no time left to allow for an answer to that question. So whoever's the appropriate person to subsequently provide us with an answer, that would be helpful so that we don't shortchange the other members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that.
Ms. Young, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be sharing my time with my colleague, MP Han Dong. Minister Hussen, good to see you again. I've had the good fortune of being on Zoom with you a number of times over the last week, and I appreciate you and your ministry officials joining us for the committee today. Last week, you virtually visited the City of London, where I represent the people of London West, and you made a major housing announcement, over $40 million to repair over 2,000 affordable community housing units in the City of London. And all of the units will target vulnerable populations, including people who experience homelessness or at risk of homelessness, people with disabilities, and people experiencing domestic violence. Now, I think this is the biggest housing announcement in London in decades, and this speaks to how important the national housing strategy is for our government, but we need partners. And I think you would agree that the City of London has been a great partner for these projects.
Yes, absolutely. And I've always said this, and so has Parliamentary Secretary Adam Bond, that, for us to meet and hopefully exceed our housing targets under the National Housing Strategy, we cannot do it alone. Yes, the federal government will bring leadership and resources and a lot of times the lion's share of the investments, but we need local partners as well to join us in our efforts to deal with these issues. And the City of London is an example of that. These units, 2,100 units will be repaired, rejuvenated, and will become more energy efficient, saving the city and the housing authority more money. But at the same time, it'll provide a better quality of life and a better housing experience for the residents of those units. So as we build more affordable housing fast, as we direct more help immediately to people through the Canada Housing Benefit, we must not forget to preserve and rejuvenate and renew the existing housing stock.
So after the housing announcement, we held a roundtable discussion with a number of housing stakeholders, including community housing advocates, who were very supportive of what we were doing and what we were putting into place, but they were critical of the provincial government in Ontario specifically. I know this has been a problem in other provinces, and I wonder what you take from this and whether you foresee the provincial government coming on board and ensuring that the investments that we make will go even further.
Absolutely. So again, in order to maximize and leverage the federal investments through the National Housing Strategy to build more affordable housing across the country in provinces like Ontario, we also need the provincial partners to step up and provide the wraparound supports that are necessary for some of the residents of those future units. And so in this way, you can see, for example, through the Rapid Housing Initiative, through the Co-Investment Fund and other housing programs, that when municipal governments, nonprofits, but especially provincial territorial governments step up and provide the wraparound supports. And then we're able to stretch those dollars and really create housing, comprehensive housing that meets the needs of different populations based on their needs.
I'll throw it over to my colleague, MP Dong.
Thank you, MP On. Minister, deputies, welcome to the committee. Minister, can you give us a quick update on the Rapid Housing Initiative? In particular, can you speak to the uptake in the program in urban versus suburban versus rural areas?
Yes, I think this has been an amazing program, a cutting edge program that is incredible and has lived up to its name in terms of rapidly moving dollars to address the housing crisis in Canada. And it is our government's response to the housing challenges that have been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. And when we say rapid housing, we're not just referring to the housing that will be built quickly, but also how quickly we've been able to conclude agreements with both cities and proponents, and also hopefully make sure that the money is spent as well as committed very quickly. In terms of the split between rural and urban and suburban and northern, I'll turn it over to Mr. Siddall to provide that context.
Yeah, how are you doing in the rural areas?
We'll provide a specific breakdown after the fact. It is the major city stream, of course, the $500 million up front is urban weighted. The project stream tends to be significantly benefiting Indigenous communities, which tend to be rural, but I'll give you a more specific breakdown in writing.
Thank you very much. And also I want to talk about Canada Housing Benefit, which is very important to provide support for newcomers, for low-income families, Indigenous people, veterans. Following what MP Young was saying, that I know for this particular program, there are provinces that hasn't signed on to it. In your view, what's the holdup? Why we don't have all the provinces that signed up on that?
Well, actually, most have. I think the province of Quebec is the only one that hasn't signed, and I believe one more. But most of the provinces have signed. The latest being the province of British Columbia, where we signed a British Columbia housing benefit to the tune of $517 million. The first province to join us in this housing benefit was Ontario at the beginning of last year in January, and that program is worth $1.46 billion, cost shared between us and the province of Ontario. And it is a very deep benefit because it's targeting certain populations, women and children fleeing domestic violence, people experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of experiencing homelessness, and others. And we're talking about a very deep benefit that enables people to transition from long-term stays in shelters into independent rental units, and also enabling those who are struggling to pay the rent to be able to stay in their homes.
Thank you, Minister. How much time? Thank you, Mr. Dong. Suite, Madame Chabot.
Ms. Chabot, for 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister, it's a pleasure to see you, and thank you for being available. You talked about a world of openness, about the importance that you give to security for Canadian citizens. You know full well that at the beginning of the week, there have been 8,000 files that had problems to deal with security and safety. Can you guarantee that all measures are being taken in Service Canada to support the privacy of citizens in Canada? Have you increased safety measures?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for your question.
Ms. Laurie MacDonald to answer that question.
Thank you for your question.
In fact, we've put a number of procedures in place over the course of this summer as a result of security concerns we had in terms of accessing personal information. And we're pleased to say that we actually introduced a new multi-factor authentication system, a two-factor authentication system, to ensure that the personal information of Canadians accessing our services are even more secure than they have been in the past.
I would like to ask a question about the performance of Service Canada. The Auditor General recommended that Service Canada publish in a transparent fashion the types of information that is dealt with in the call centers and to confirm accuracy. Has all that been put in place? And there was a question posed by another witness about the fluidity and the impact of the shutdown on call centers and the mobile service centers. And I think that it is quite appropriate that this no longer occur. And what measures have you taken with respect to the performance? Thank you for your question.
Ms. Laurie McDonald again to answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merci pour la question. I'm happy to say that over the course of the past year, we've actually put 2 new services in place to actually augment our vulnerable populations where we've not been able to reestablish the site visits. We hope to do that this year once some of the guidelines have been increased in terms of access to travel and so on. These 2 measures include 2 new alternative service delivery models to reach those more vulnerable populations. One is called e-service, where clients can actually go online, fill out a form, send it to us, and we respond back to them in 24 to 48 hours. We've actually reached multi-thousands of Canadians with this new service. The second is through an e-call service, which is where we've used third-party interveners to support us in rural and northern communities, to support particularly Indigenous communities for service. And that's a toll-free number where a Canadian can call in to the toll-free number and we actually return their call as well. And we do all of their services for them online. This is also assists them in terms of being able to remain safely in their home. So those 2 services are actually augmenting the service that is not available through the travel program. In terms of the call centers, I'll turn to my colleague, Cliff Groen, but in terms of the call centers, as Minister Hussen indicated, we have invested significant amounts of money in augmenting our service call centers this past year, including hiring up to an additional 1,500 staff. I'm going to address some of the issues that were in place.
Merci. Ne passez pas la parole.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to have time to ask a question about the Rapid Housing Initiative. You know it's supposed to be rapid, but in the second tranche of the program, the initiative, well, the applicants had up to January to fill them out, but they have been getting responses just recently. So a lot of them are worried that their project will never see the light of day. So what's happening with this project? And they fear that they're going to be turned down because of the delays.
The Rapid Housing Initiative is a special program that our government introduced to respond to the housing challenges that have been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. The first, out of the $1 billion program, the first $500 million went to the 15 municipalities in Canada, including a number in Quebec that have the highest number of individuals experiencing homelessness. The remaining $500 million was dedicated to projects from municipalities, from provinces, Indigenous governing bodies, as well as nonprofit organizations. And the reason, again, that the timelines were a little tight was because we wanted to make sure that the money got out quickly so that we could address the challenges on the ground with respect to people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, Madame Chabot. Next, we have Ms. Gazan, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and nice to see you today, Minister. Recently, our community was funded for a 24/7 safe space for women, girls, 2S, LGBTQIA folks. In fact, I personally referred 3 women in crisis today as a life-saving measure. You spoke with your colleague about the need for investment in housing, particularly for women. I would agree with you on that, particularly in the riding which I represent, where Minister Bennett actually called ground zero for MMIWG. We currently have projects on the go, waiting to be funded for women, girls, 2S, LGBTQIA folks, some coming from refugee communities who've had to flee their countries because of sexual orientation. Is your government committed to dealing with this critical crisis, particularly in ridings like Winnipeg Centre, where women continue to lose their lives, including 2 who lost their lives during this past month?
Mr. Chair, I really want to thank the honourable member for that really important question. And I recognize how real the need is for safe and affordable housing in Winnipeg, especially in the member's constituency, and how this is a priority for her community. And that is why we've already invested $228 million in the city of Winnipeg, representing over 6,200 units. Just last week, I joined Mayor Bauman of Winnipeg in announcing $22.8 million through our rental construction financing initiative for 87 new housing units. 29 of those units are deeply affordable. And to support those who are in dire need, we quickly provided over $20 million to $12.5 million through the Rapid Housing Initiative just for Winnipeg, so that they use it the way they see fit for rapid housing solutions.
Just Minister, because we do have a limited amount of time, I do want to remind you that the PBO report just came out citing a shortage of 9,000 units, core housing units, and Indigenous families and core housing needs. So although I do appreciate the investments, I will take any investment because we are in a crisis. We did lose 2 other women the other week. It is a very pronounced crisis, and in fact, the worst in the country. I have another question in regards to that. I know the federal government has promised to eradicate child poverty for over 30 years, and your government actually renewed this promise in 2018 and published a national poverty reduction strategy with subsequent poverty reduction legislation in 2019. Your strategy called for a human rights-based approach to poverty reduction, one that reflects principles that include universality, non-discrimination, and equality. And yet, the Canada Child Benefit, a crucial mechanism for reducing child poverty, excludes parents with precarious immigration status, even though many work in Canada legally and file personal income tax. This is a very pronounced problem, certainly in my riding, where families are just struggling to get by because they do not qualify for that tax benefit. Is it normal for a human rights approach to poverty reduction to exclude refugee claimants and parents with undocumented immigration status?
I can speak to, of course, our government's ambition to eradicate child poverty and to make sure that we continue our investment in the Canada Child Benefit. You've seen in the fall economic statement our commitment to increase the Canada Child Benefit for families who have children under the age of 6. You saw in July 20th, 2020, we increased the Canada Child Benefit permanently yet again. And then on May 20th, 2020, we had a one-time payment of up to $300 for each child receiving the Canada Child Benefit.
So again, Minister, Sorry, Minister, just because I appreciate those investments, it still doesn't respond to those that are being left behind, those with precarious immigration status. I'm wondering to ensure if that families with precarious status receive access to the child benefit to support their children, would your government commit to acting immediately by repealing Section 122.6E of the Income Tax Act that ties eligibility to immigration status?
Well, I would say that our government is committed to eliminating child poverty and including as many families in the Canada Child Benefit as possible.
You know, and I ask that because, you know, families, you know, they come to Canada certainly with a great debt to come into Canada. Struggling. We have many homes across the country, including in my riding, that are horribly overcrowded because of lack of financial support. Knowing that, you know, child poverty is inexcusable. And I ask that because I wonder how many high-income families access the one-time $300 increase to the Canadian child tax benefit in 2020.
I'll turn it over to Deputy Graham Flack for that answer.
We'd have to get back to you on the precise income distribution statistics.
Thank you, Mr. Flack, and thank you, Ms. Gazan. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Tucker, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Just to the Minister, just to start off, give you the opportunity to commit to getting back to Mr. Viss in a written response for his last question.
Sorry, which question are you referring to?
Brad Viss's last question. Just commit to getting back to him in writing.
I believe Mr. Siddall already committed to Mr. Viss.
I'm happy to confirm it.
Okay, great. I'll start my 5 minutes now. So as the seasons change, things are quite predictable. Snow's melting, the leaves, as pointed out, are tanking now into the spring, and the Liberals must be planning a fall election because they're bringing up the faulty idea of a national childcare strategy or program. And I'd like to get the Minister comments on why the government would, in the economic statement in 2020, that your government said that Quebec, that says that Quebec can show us the way on childcare and promises that in budget 2021 will lay out a plan for national childcare. But Minister, are you aware of some of the issues surrounding this campaign promise that has been made 5 elections, never implemented during a majority or minority Liberal government? Why would you say that we're going to follow Quebec's lead on this?
Because Quebec has achieved childcare affordability and they have closed the gap between men and women participating in the labor market. So if you're opposed to that, that's fine.
You're aware of some of the issues, though, right? Minister, are you?
We can always learn. When we say that the Quebec system is the model, we will learn from both the successes as well as the challenges.
Are you, not the challenges, but some of the research that's coming out on the outcome, and unfortunately for these children, the one study, the non-cognitive deficits in young adults outcome, are you aware of that study?
No, I'm not.
So, really, I'm surprised. Well, just quickly, it's a study from professors from U of T, UBC, MIT, Professor Baker, Milligan, and Gruber. I'm just shocked that your officials didn't brief you on what they found. Their report, I'll just quote a little bit so you have some background information on it. Quote, they're striking evidence that children are worse off. Be it behavioral or health dimensions ranging from aggression to motor skills to illness. Our analysis also suggests that the new childcare program led to more hostile, less consistent parenting, worse parenting health, and lower quality parental relationships. And I'd like to point out that these professors have actually, that their work had won the Canadian Economic Association 2009 Perviv prize. So this is not a Mickey Mouse study or questionable outcomes that has been exposed when you're looking at the actual outcome of the child. So you're not aware of these issues that researchers have found?
I think, Mr. Chair, the honourable member is, I think, philosophically opposed to early learning and childcare through public funding, and that is just, we'll just have to disagree on that, because I believe that,
I'm not opposed to the childcare system even on financial terms. We know that it would be expensive, and you guys love to spend money, but it still begs the question that you've fought 5 elections with the concept of national childcare and never implemented. And you guys blow money on everything. I suspect it's not a financial reason why you haven't done it. I believe that there's probably people in your department know that, unfortunately, the health outcomes and the issues that children face if they—
Is there a question in there somewhere?
Yes. I'm just shocked that you would blindly be following one province with national childcare without knowing some of the pitfalls. You don't see some of the pitfalls, or are you not aware of any?
Every single jurisdiction in the world that has invested in high quality and accessible childcare has seen 2 benefits. One, a close in the gap of between men and women participating in the labor market, and second, better outcomes for children as a result of being exposed to high quality and accessible and affordable early learning and childcare. So this is not just
this research that they've
policy.
done. So this research, you disagree with the research that has shown that there's questionable outcomes for children that have been cared for?
I'm happy to look at any research that you want me to look at, but I think we seem to have a disagreement philosophically about the benefits of early learning and childcare for children. So
not at all. I
Minister.
believe.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. We're going to go now to Mr. Vaughn, please, for 5 minutes.
Okay, I just I almost felt like getting Madame Chabot to answer that question instead of the minister to defend Quebec's system. But I'll ask a couple other questions on the rental housing construction finance fund that Mr. Viss talked about. Part of the goal of that is to get affordable housing in place, so then the Canada Housing Benefit can move in to make it deeply affordable. And the other component of having a portable benefit achieve that, as opposed to a higher capital investment in the rental housing, is so that, say somebody gets a job working in the Site C Dam that the New Democrats have approved in BC, and you get a job working at Fort St. John, and you get a rent subsidy that's portable, you can move from Vancouver to Fort St. John, keep your benefit while you establish a new career on that project. And that's part of the way our housing strategy is aimed at working. Is that not why we have the rental housing construction and the subsidy to create the deeply affordable and mobile benefit to help people?
Absolutely. And then in addition to that, the developer must maintain a portion of the units as deeply affordable for a minimum of 20 years or more.
So the next person coming along also gets the benefit of the investment.
That's correct.
So we help 2 people with 1 investment. Okay.
So for example, the recent RCFI announcement in Winnipeg, it's 87 units. 29 of those units are deeply affordable, meaning 30% or less of the average household income in Winnipeg. And then the remaining are 80% of the.
And if the Conservative government, in Manitoba, who have received our federal dollars for the housing benefit, would start spending those dollars on the housing benefit, we could help low-income households access those apartments as a way of deepening the affordability and extending the range of affordability for people in Winnipeg. But it takes a willing provincial government in Manitoba to do that.
Well, absolutely, of course. I mean, as I said in the beginning of my remarks, the federal government will always bring the capital dollars and the Canada Housing Benefit dollars, as well as the investments in rapid housing and co-investment funds. But we do need the provinces to also step up, both to provide the wraparound supports, but also to meet us halfway in terms of the housing benefit and making sure that that housing benefit goes to priority populations.
And on the rapid housing, if the provincial government across the country, in Saskatchewan in particular, we had some trouble. If governments would add the Canada Housing Benefit to rapid housing initiative proposals, you would have more success, because that long-term support through the Canada Housing Benefit is what makes rapid housing on a long-term basis a much more successful program, not for the governments involved, but for the people it's trying to serve.
Yes, and it would actually leverage the federal investments to create even more affordable housing units through the provision of supportive services and other incentives like land and.
But you need governments to contribute. And Mr. Siddall, in terms of the rapid housing, I know you've asked for a lot of information. As we execute the agreements and get the dollars at the door very quickly, I know there's the announcements will coming shortly. The projects that are on hold, though, create a catalog of the real estate assets across the country that could be scooped up by anybody if we sent the list out publicly right now, because they're effectively distressed assets. Is that one of the reasons we have to be careful about disclosure and making sure that while we can list maybe applicants' names, we can't list the addresses, because that would trigger a run on the market that would take them away from the affordable sector?
We're also looking at the National Housing Co-Investment Fund and the availability of those dollars to help support additional projects. And, to the extent we can help them with that pile of money, we actually expand the effectiveness of that RHI process.
And in terms of Quebec, the issue is just executing agreements is projects, and we are in fact in conversation with everybody who's been approved in Quebec to get those contracts executed within a matter of days.
As far as Quebec's concerned, we have committed $178 million under the Canada-Quebec RHI agreement. That's $57 million for the City of Montreal, $7 million for Quebec City, and $115 million allocated under the project stream that's being administered by the Société d'Habitation du Québec.
And because we work directly with the cities, those dollars were actually forwarded to the cities in December ahead of the project stream. Yeah. So working directly with cities as a federal government allowed us to get more dollars into Quebec faster, and more importantly, get to more Quebecers faster.
Yes.
Okay, and in terms of the projects that are on hold that haven't been approved but have met the qualifying standards, are you familiar if the opposition supports the budget that's upcoming?
Yes, absolutely. I am hopeful and determined to make the case to have more additional dollars for what has proven to be not only a very successful program, but a program that is very much needed from coast to coast to coast.
And there's a significant number of projects on that list that a budget in 4 or 5 weeks, whenever it is, we don't know, but a budget that comes sooner will allow us to get to those projects without a reapplication process, therefore reducing costs for the applicants. That's one of the goals that we have as we move to end chronic homelessness in this country.
Yes, and in fact, to answer the member's question, the number of applications, the number of viable projects that responded to the call for proposals for the Rapid Housing Initiative was simply incredible. And it shows that the need is there, but it also shows that there's partners who are ready and able to put together shovel-ready projects, viable projects that are much in need. And we, I and the honourable member and others believe that we should definitely.
But if you want to boost your project's time, get the province on board.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Minister. Madame Chabot, s'il vous plaît, 2 minutes et demie.
2.5 minutes, Ms. Chabot. Thank you. My question pertains to the benefits provided by Service Canada. Mr. Minister, you said that there are many different types of benefits that have been implemented to support workers or companies, but I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that there are a lot of files that have been blocked when the individuals, the workers, have made an application for the recovery benefit, because the answer that they got from Service Canada was that they already had an open file, and since they already had an open file, well, that would block their application. And we're talking about 100,000 people who have experienced major delays. Even though they were entitled to the benefits, they've had delays of 7 to 8 weeks. So we have documentation that shows that the forms are not adapted to their reality. To ask an independent workers if they're looking for work, that's perhaps not the right question you have to ask. And they don't have a job because things have been shut down. So there are delays. Can you assure us that there will be a quicker turnaround from Service Canada? Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn this floor over to Ms. Laurie McDonald. Thank you for the question.
Groen to come in.
Merci beaucoup pour cette question.
Thank you for this question. And the delivery of benefits is a huge priority for our department. And that's why, since the program got underway in October, more than 88% of cases have already been processed, and more than 94% were processed in accordance with standards. But we do know that there are some clients who have applied to Service Canada and to CRA, and we have to resolve some of the issues with these clients. And we have set up a process with the agency and with Service Canada to process these applications on a priority basis. And we're very aware of this issue. We want to ensure that it gets resolved. Thank you, Mr. Groen. And Ms. Chabot.
Ms. Gazan for 2.5 minutes, and then we're going to meet your hard stop, Minister. Ms. Gazan, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. You know, I have often said, Minister, that the Manitoba provincial government has become the grandest excuse for the Fed not to get around it. And I just want to remind you that this government gave Imperial Oil $120 million for workers and handed $3 to their shareholders. Again, not an acceptable excuse for me when people are losing lives. I have a question. We know that the federal government has released funds here and there, certainly appreciated. But I have a question about the urban, rural, northern Indigenous housing strategy with Indigenous-led governance structure and capital funding. When is this going to be released?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question. We've made significant investments in a distinctions-based housing strategy with the 3 national Indigenous organizations. We continue to invest immensely in urban Indigenous housing projects. There is an effort now to consult and co-develop an urban, rural, and northern housing strategy. But while we're doing that, the investments continue. As you've heard from Mr. Siddall, in the Rapid Housing Initiative, there is a substantial amount of projects that are successful that come from Indigenous communities.
Yes, thank you. I think that doesn't answer my question, though. We know that even, like I mentioned, in the city of Winnipeg, 9,000 Indigenous families are in core housing need. We know throughout the country, from frontline organizations, Indigenous organizations, we need an urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing strategy now. When will that be released?
I couldn't agree more with the honourable member. We've made significant investments to support urban Indigenous housing proponents, and we want to make sure that we continue those investments from budget 2017, $225 million commitment. In the National Housing Strategy, we prioritize projects for Indigenous communities across the housing spectrum.
Yes, Minister, and I do appreciate.
Thank you, Ms. Gazan.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
Minister, we've reached the appointed hour. We want to thank you, Minister. We know that your initial appearance on SUPs and mains got sidetracked by a matter that was referred to us by the House. We appreciate you making yourself available during a constituency week to come in and make sure that we got in under the deadline for reporting. So thank you for being with us, and we realize you're on to something else right away. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again before long.
Thank you.
And I know many of your officials are going to be staying on to accompany Ms. Qualtrough, but for those who are leaving, thanks again for your support and thank you for what you do. We are going to suspend for 2 to 3 minutes while we do sound checks for the incoming panel. Thanks again, Minister. Have a good day. Today, the committee is meeting on its study of Supplementary Estimate C 2020-2021 and the main estimates 2021-22. J'aimerais maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue.
I would like to now welcome our witness as we continue our discussions. We have a 5-minute opening statement followed by questions.
The Honorable Employment, Workforce Development, Disability Inclusion. And she is joined by Mark Perlman, Chief Financial Officer and Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Laurie McDonald, Senior Associate Deputy Minister, Employment and Social Development, Chief Operating Officer for Service Canada. Madam Minister, welcome back to the committee. It's good to see you again. You have 5 minutes for your opening statement, starting now.
Thank you very much. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you for inviting me to join you today.
As was said, I'll be speaking to the Supplementary Estimate C for 2020-2021 and the main estimates for 2021-2022 for Employment and Social Development Canada. The Supplementary Estimate C for 2020-2021 requests an additional $225 million in voted authorities, offset by a decrease of $708 million in statutory authorities. This decrease is due primarily to updated forecasts for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. The 2021-2022 main estimates presents planned expenditures of $82.4 billion, which is an increase in $13.8 billion from the original planned budgetary expenditures for 2020-2021. Let me explain. Depuis le début de la pandémie,
since the beginning of the pandemic, our government has provided significant support to Canadians. In the fall economic statement, we shared our plan, which was aimed at achieving a strong recovery in Canada. The appropriations that are requested will help us put this plan into effect.
Include funding for our Canada Recovery benefits. The Supplementary Estimate C include funding to support students, to improve youth programming, and to improve gender and diversity outcomes in skills programming. They also include funding for Canadians with disabilities. Let me provide you with more details. Within weeks of the first lockdown, we set up the CERB, a keystone piece of economic support that helped more than 8 million Canadians. Au cours de l'été et de l'automne dernier, nous avons présenté notre plan visant.
Over the summer and last fall, we presented our plan to continue supporting Canadian workers throughout the pandemic. We did the transition from the CERB towards a simplified employment insurance regime and set up economic recovery benefits in order to provide income support to workers who are still being hit by COVID-19.
Who didn't qualify for EI, like the self-employed and those in the gig economy, we introduced a complementary new suite of recovery benefits, the Canada Recovery Benefit, the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, and the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. At the time, we said we monitor labor market changes and make adjustments as needed. We've done that and are following through on our commitment to continue providing certainty for workers. C'est pourquoi, le 20 février dernier, nous avons...
That's why on February 20th, we tabled Project C24 to temporarily increase the maximum number of weeks for regular employment insurance benefits. We are also intending to increase the number of weeks covered by the Canadian Economic Recovery Benefit through regulations.
Through the main estimates, we are requesting an increase totaling $10.3 billion for the 3 temporary recovery benefits so that we can continue to support workers. Next, I'd like to speak to the impact the pandemic has had on Canada's young people. Many have faced financial hardships and lost employment opportunities. As a government, we stepped up to support them. One of the first things we did was put a pause on student loan repayments. We then introduced a comprehensive emergency package for students and young Canadians that included boosts to job programs, direct income support, and increased financial assistance through grants and loans. Nous savons à quel point l'éducation est importante.
We realize just how important education is. Students have told us loud and clear that they wanted financial support.
We are committed to creating 1 million jobs, restoring employment to pre-pandemic levels, making the largest training investment in Canadian history, and creating opportunities for young people. We are focused on strengthening workers' futures by ensuring they have the skills they need for the changing nature of work and labor market. Nous allons y arriver en utilisant plusieurs outils.
We will do this by using several different tools, including immediate training to enable workers to quickly acquire skills. We also intend to improve youth programs and to improve the outcomes in terms of gender equality and diversity of the skills development programs. For example, we will be significantly broadening the youth employment and skills strategy in order to provide greater paid employment opportunities to young Canadians who are facing obstacles getting into the labor force.
The Summer Jobs Program is aiming to have a total of 120,000 jobs for students. That's 50% more than last year. For persons with disabilities, the pandemic has been particularly difficult and has exacerbated barriers to inclusion. We've taken a disability-inclusive approach to our pandemic response from the start to ensure that whatever we did would help persons with disabilities. The Supplementary Estimate C provided funding for a targeted one-time payment of up to $600 to help Canadians with disabilities with the extra expenses incurred during the pandemic. Il y a encore beaucoup à faire, et c'est là que notre
There's still a lot to do, and that's why our plan to include individuals, or to include disabled individuals, comes into play.
GIS for seniors, a robust employment strategy, and a better process to determine eligibility for government disability programs and benefits. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for your attention to these estimates. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank you all for your and your respective parties' support and consent in the House during the most challenging times of the crisis, times when Canadians needed help the most and we came together. Ensemble, nous pouvons offrir aux Canadiens le soutien.
Together, we can provide Canadians with the support they need to get through this pandemic. I'd be happy to answer your questions now.
Thank you, Minister. And we're going to proceed with questions, beginning with Ms. Doncho, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. I want to ask you about the CELA and NELS funding. As you know, I raised this to you and in the House of Commons as well. Your department provides $4 million annually to these organizations to provide reading materials for those that have visual disabilities, those that have blindness or cerebral palsy, as you know, and the like. They alerted me 2 weeks ago that you were planning to phase out that funding at $1 million annually. I see today that you put out a news release just within the hour, I believe, concerning these funding cuts, but I'm not clear if you're committing to a $1 million one-time bump in their funding and whether you're committing to not cutting this funding next budget year and beyond. So if you can clarify that would be great.
Yes, pardon me, Chair, I was on mute. Thank you for the question. I had the opportunity, as I had forecast to you all, to meet with NELS and CELA yesterday to talk about our mutual objective to transition the accessible publishing to make books accessible from the start. In recognition of the fact that this transition has stalled as a result of the pandemic, I was able to provide the organization with assurances that they will be receiving $1 million more for the 2021-2022 fiscal year in order to bring their amount back up to $4 million as it has been previously. We agreed that the long-term vision for accessible publishing is to transfer the responsibility for making materials accessible to the publishing industry, that it shouldn't be, incumbent on nonprofits to continue to do this, that we should have accessible publishing, but that this will take time. So over the next months, we're going to work to them to see what funding levels should stay in the future, and in fact, where that funding should come from. Should the relationship, for example, with ESDC peter out and have a new relationship with the Canada Book Fund or with the Publishing Industry Direct? So it was an excellent conversation yesterday, and we're on the same page.
Great, thank you for that. So it's not a new funding bump, then it's just a maintenance of their $4 million funding. I'm encouraged to hear that you're maintaining that funding this year, but it sounds like the commitment for years following is up in the air still, but I appreciate your response. I wanted to ask you about the Canada Training Benefit. This was announced, as you I'm sure you remember, in the 2019 federal budget. It was a program that was going to provide a non-taxable Canadian training credit of $250 a year. It was going to provide sort of EI supports of 55% of a wage for 4 weeks for folks to take off and go do training, and is also going to provide a leave provision for folks to sort of secure their employment while they go and seek further training. So we've heard a lot about this in the COVID in the last 12 months from the COVID experience that people need reskilling, but my understanding from this 2019 budgetary announcement that this was supposed to be launched late in 2020, but to my knowledge, it has not been launched. So I'm just wondering, are you planning to relaunch or reimagine this program?
A little bit of both, to be honest with you. You know, the training environment has changed so significantly with COVID, and in the fall economic statement, we made a commitment to make the largest investment in training. So we're right now working with stakeholders to understand the best way to support workers needing upskilling or different skills or transitional skills, including what the training benefit could do for a broader number of Canadians. If you'll, as you said, it was originally conceived to be available for people who were working and were then able to take time off to upskill or retrain. But right now, we also are very focused on the people who aren't working and who aren't necessarily in the EI system. So we definitely think that there's a role to play for the training benefit, and we are working on a comprehensive approach to training, working with the provinces and territories. A component of that will be the training benefit, but no details yet to share beyond that. I apologize.
Can you provide an estimated timeline of when we would see something comparable to the Canada Training Benefit?
Well, I'll get Graham to talk about the elements of the training benefit that are in play right now, but of course, you know, not being able to share the approximate timing of the budget, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand. No, that's fine. So it sounds like there's something coming in the budget about that. We'll be looking keenly for that. So thank you, Minister. I don't have too much time left in my first round, so I'm just going to jump a little bit all over the place here. Can you tell me when you're planning to reopen the Service Canada locations? They've been closed, as we know, for about almost 12 months now.
I'll get Lori to give you the exact details on openings, and I believe some are already open. Lori?
Okay.
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. In fact, we have 317 Service Canada centres. 309 of them are opened. We were closed from March 27th until the first week of July, and we've incrementally opened all of our Service Canada centres. Put in to reach people in their homes so they did not have to come into our Service Canada centres.
Okay, that's not what I'm hearing from my constituents. We'll have to go check on the ground to make sure Kildonan and St. Paul one, because that was we were lacking a lot of services in that regard. But I'm very encouraged to hear that you're actively making sure that these are all open across the country. Minister, just with my remaining time, I just wanted to circle back to, well, actually, we'll have to wait until next time. I only have 10 seconds left, but I'm going to ask you about a recent announcement from Manitoba. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doncho. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Turnbull, please, for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Minister. It's great to have you here, and thank you to you and your officials for all your hard work during this pandemic. And it's always great to have you at committee. I have two sort of lines of questioning. One in regards to supports for persons with people with disabilities, and youth, and more questions on youth employment and the skills strategy. So hearing the voices of people who are impacted by policy decisions, I know is important to our government, and I know it's important to you. We've talked about that before. Can you tell us how you are ensuring we are taking a disability inclusive approach to our response to the pandemic?
Well, thank you for the question. It was really exciting and beneficial to have the Accessible Canada Act as the backdrop or as the foundation of the work we could do in our pandemic response to ensure that it was disability inclusive. We immediately struck what we call the COVID Disability Advisory Group, or CDAG, which really advised our government on pandemic response and how our decisions could or would be impacting people on the ground with lived experience in disability. They were just invaluable in terms of the advice they gave and the issues that we were able to address in partnership with the disability community. They provided advice and expertise to other government departments, public health, public safety, FAC, ESDC. For example, they identified provincial issues, and that let myself and other cabinet colleagues bring forward these issues to our PT colleagues. We signed on to a UN statement that we would take a disability inclusive approach, which was signed by over 100 countries. And of course, this, their effort and their advice resulted in the one-time payment of $600 to over 1.6 million Canadians. They said that we needed more employment supports as people transitioned to working at home. So we created the Workplace Accessibility Stream of the Opportunities Fund. And quite frankly, across the board, we were able to understand the impacts that anything we were doing would have on this particularly vulnerable population. So I think, quite frankly, that the way we handled the pandemic will be a baseline for emergency response in the future. No government of Canada will ever go back to not being disability inclusive.
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate the commitment to building in lived experience into everything we're doing and seeing how a disability inclusive approach can almost cut across all programming and all supports and all services as a lens that we look through. So I really appreciate your leadership on that. I've heard from constituents, and I'm sure you agree, I certainly agree with them, that we need to do more to support persons with disabilities. As you know, Minister, in my riding, I have a world-renowned Ability Center, which is a massive organization that sees itself as an inclusion incubator, and they're doing all kinds of great work there, right here in Whitby. The government has committed to a disability inclusion plan. Can you tell us how the plan will address certain challenges that persons with disabilities have faced, and particularly those that they've faced during the pandemic? I really feel passionate about this, and I know my constituents do too. So any more information on that would be helpful.
Well, thank you for the question, and a big shout out to the Ability Center in Whitby. It's a fantastic organization and facility. Again, with the Accessible Canada Act as a backdrop, and now having the experience of the pandemic and the CDAG, I guess, we're moving very quickly to act, and that's why we did announce that we would be creating this Disability Inclusion Action Plan, because we know that many Canadians with disabilities live in poverty, are unemployed or precariously employed, and lack the supports they need. So it will include, as I said in my opening remarks, a robust employment strategy, meaning we'll support workers and entrepreneurs with disabilities, work with employers to be more disability inclusive and confident, and to understand the business case for disability inclusion. And it will also include what the Canada Disability Benefit, which is a direct income supplement for low-income working-age Canadians with disabilities, modeled after the GIS, aimed at improving financial independence and security. And finally, and perhaps most generationally impactful, it will include a modernization of how the Government of Canada assesses eligibility for disability-related programs, so that we ensure the challenges we faced in delivering the one-time COVID payment do not occur again. And, honestly, it's well overdue to have a more dignified way of assessing disability and to be able to communicate directly with Canadians with disabilities.
It's very exciting, and thank you for that update. I'll shift with my last minute or so, or less than a minute. I'll shift to a question about the Canada Summer Jobs Program. I met with an organization in my riding today called Nova's Arc. They're doing programming for children, youth, and adults with exceptionality. Offer really great outdoor programming, including animal therapy, all kinds of out-of-the-box programming, they call it. And it's a wonderful space and facility. They rely heavily on the Canada Summer Jobs Program, and they've said that they really believe in this program and how much it supports them, but they really want to see the flexibilities in that program that we introduced during COVID-19 continue. Is there any plans for those flexibilities to be continued?
The quick answer is yes. In fact, we've kept the flexibilities, recognizing how helpful and how much more adaptive they can make these employment experiences if they can make them part-time, if the number of weeks could be longer. Some of the jobs we're funding to 100%, which is really important. And last, as I said in my remarks, we're kind of doubling down. Last year we funded 80,000 jobs. This year we're funding 120,000 jobs. It is a real kind of cornerstone piece of our youth employment and skills strategy. Employers love it, young people love it, MPs love it. It's really got a great track record.
We definitely, and thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Madame Chabot, s'il vous plaît, pour 6 minutes.
Madame Chabot, you have 6 minutes. Thank you, and good afternoon, Minister. I'm happy to see you again. You are very available, and I'd like to thank you for that. You will not be surprised if I want to talk about employment. What I'd like to know, the 2021 budget, you talked about many measures that have been implemented. I won't list them all. They're all there to help workers. We know that there are temporary measures that will come to an end in September. So how have you planned? You've asked for additional funding to bear in mind this issue. On what basis have you done this? And will there be permanent measures starting in September? Will there be strengthened measures? Will there be measures that look at an increase in sickness benefits? How are you tailoring your appropriation based on that? Thank you very much for your question. Planning of employment insurance is a very complicated process, and it's very important that we have the right amounts. I'm going to ask Graham or Mark to provide the exact amounts for Madam Chabot. With all due respect, it's not the amounts that I want. It's how did you determine these amounts? Did you estimate that based on that starting September 2021, will it be the status quo of employment insurance that will apply? I understand now. I understand now. We used the amounts and we allowed for this flexibility until September, and then we will go back to the pre-demic program. But we haven't made any decision yet whether the program will be changed in September. And Mark will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we have not yet made a decision with respect to that. Mark, just to say that the figures before you are based on decisions that were taken by the government, but it doesn't take into consideration any further decisions that may be made. So the figures that you have do not take into account additional measures. So I understand before that time it was pre-pandemic. There was a commitment to increase sickness benefits. That's clear. But we have to do a lot of work between now and September. And my second question is about Service Canada. It's a very important program. Do you asked for any additional amounts or with respect to this particular program? And I'll explain why. We see that the organizations that are going to be applying for these funds are going to be asking for more for a simple reason, because of the rules that have to be respected. It takes more individuals for the festivals, for the summer programs, for activities for youth in communities. So they need more individuals to meet the same needs. And as a result, they need to have additional funds for this summer jobs program. Has that been provided for? Yes. We have decided to provide more jobs for youth, and I can check, but we have set aside 4.9 million for 2020, 2021. Could you take it over, Mark? Is that true? Just to say, it was in the fall economic statement. We talked about this $46.7 million. And so before we spend this money, Parliament will obviously have to give its approval, but these amounts were mentioned in the fall economic statement. So if I understand correctly, there are additional amounts compared to the previous summer. That's correct. Do I have time to ask another question, Mr. Chair? Yes, you have 40 seconds. For the disabled individuals, we have concerns. We know that they have been particularly hard hit. I believe a recent study came out about the fact that they were losing their jobs and they have higher unemployment figures. Do you have any substantial measures to help the reality of disabled individuals aside from the amounts that they've received up until now? We have invested more money in the Opportunities Fund for people who are living with disabilities. We will have an employment strategy for disabled people. We intend to change the internal process of the Government of Canada when providing services and programs for disabled individuals in the Government of Canada. So we are doing a lot of work, and the extra money spelled out in today's documents, particularly in the Opportunities Fund, are all there. But once we finalize the plan, we will look at other monies. Thank you, Madam Minister, and thank you, Ms. Chabot.
6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here today, Minister. You know that many Canadians live in very deep poverty, and being able to access the CERB was a matter of life and death for many low-income Canadians, many of whom are also from BIPOC communities and are from disabled communities. You know, I know that you spoke about the $600 benefit, one-time benefit, not adequate, and we know many disabled persons didn't even qualify. So I hesitate to celebrate about the continued discrimination against disabled persons in this country. Yet in December, we know that some 400, and knowing all of this, some 441,000 Canadians were told that their CERB eligibility was under review and that they might have to repay their benefit. Your office has gone even on record, Minister, to say that no one will face penalties or interest as a result of their CERB review, and that repayment will be flexible and sensitive to individual circumstances. But that's not enough. The fact of the matter is low-income people cannot afford to make even small repayments and need CERB repayment amnesty to avoid falling into deeper poverty. $10 is a lot when you're living in poverty. How many, my question, Minister, is how many low-income Canadians are under review for their CERB eligibility?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think it's important to start from the place where CRA was in December around sending out these letters was to work with Canadians to get their 2019 taxes filed, to provide proof of income.
Minister, my question.
Ms. Gazan, you took 1.5 minutes to ask the question. She's entitled to 1.5 minutes to attempt to answer it. Go ahead, Minister.
and with the hope that many of those would actually be eligible for CERB. And you are correct that what we are committed to do is work with those who may have financial obligation to repay, but not right now. Nobody is required right now. There won't be any penalties or interest. We've announced that anybody who might owe taxes on CERB has a year to pay those taxes without any interest accruing as a result of that obligation. You're right, it's really tough, and we know it's tough, and we are working very hard with many Canadians to chart a course for them that works for them, how very little those payments may be.
Minister, I think it's easy for us with very well-paid jobs to talk about how tough things are. But my question is, can you tell us why your government is set on sending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Canadians into poverty by refusing to grant CERB repayment amnesty? I ask that because this will make the difference between people staying housed or becoming unsheltered.
And I appreciate that perspective, and am indeed sensitive to the lived experience, particularly as I've heard from people with disabilities across the country about how tough it is and how tough it's been. And I can't give you an exact figure because we are still working with people to determine eligibility, because the win is to get as many people eligible for this and work with them on their income sources and the combination of the best 12 months.
Thank you, Minister. My goal is to keep people off the streets. So I just want to switch gears a little bit. Just a question around 15-week attachment leave for adopted kinship and custody. 2019 mandate letter includes the introduction of a 15-week leave for adoptive parents, including LGBTQ2S families. When will we see the introduction of this 15-week leave, and can you commit to ensuring it will include kinship and customary care families?
Well, thank you for bringing this up. I met recently with an organization representing adoptive parents across the country who are indeed eager to see this as part of a modernized EI program, and I committed to them and can commit to you that indeed it will be part of the way forward, as we said it would be, and quite frankly, as it may already have been had we not been mired in the pandemic over the past year. I don't know enough about the relationships of the particular family types you're talking about, but the idea in my mind is it would be as inclusive as possible and reflect the way families are.
Just for limits of time, it was in your mandate letter. So if you could follow up with my office with a response. Student loan repayments moratorium. Industries we know that employ young people have been hard hit during the pandemic. The service industry is one example. And young people currently have fewer job options, and those available are often low paying and put them at higher risk for COVID-19. On November 25th, the House unanimously adopted a motion to extend the pause on federal student loan repayments. Why have we not seen action on this, and when will you pause federal student loan repayments?
Well, helping provide relief for students, debt obligations was, as you know, one of the first things we did when the pandemic hit. And in the fall economic statement, we have committed, and I think, and I'll confirm, but I think it's around $329 million to provide immediate relief to all student loan borrowers through a one-year interest waiver, I guess is the best way to describe it. Again, we're looking at the way forward through our budget preparations, and I will have more to say on additional supports for students in the coming months.
Thank you, Ms. Gazan. Thank you, Minister. Next, Ms. Doncho, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned, Minister Qualtrough, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the recent $47 million announcement for training in Manitoba that you made, I believe it was last week or the week prior. As I'm sure you're aware, but a third of Manitoba's food and service sort of hotel jobs were wiped out, which is about 13,200 jobs that we lost, and a lot of these jobs, as actually was mentioned on this panel previously, are dominated by women, newcomers, young people. So I'm just wondering, did you put that lens on that $47 million? Has this funding sort of changed from previous funding agreements pre-pandemic? I'm just wondering if we've adapted our funding model to suit the new world.
Absolutely. And as part of and great question, thank you. As part of the $1.5 billion we announced to go directly to provinces and territories to beef up access to training for workers, we made sure that the terms and conditions of those agreements focused on the workers that are most in need. Now, the reality is many workers could benefit from training, and much more investment needs to be made in this country into training, whether it's upskilling, reskilling, transitioning from a job to another. And that's absolutely, we're really focused on the groups of individuals who are the most vulnerable and the furthest away from employment.
Are you able to make any of those terms available to the committee in terms of that funding agreement?
Graham, is it possible to make a kind of a standard set of terms and conditions available? Or Mark, maybe? I apologize.
Yeah, I'll check, Minister. I think so. So there's two different streams. So there's the streams of federal funding, and those have our own terms and conditions, and indeed we can make those available. And there has been a focus on those most distant from the workforce and those most impact. But then there's the federal provincial agreements themselves, including the Safe Restart Agreement and the $1.5 billion after. That was made public,
Right.
broad set of
Just sort of
commitments.
looking to see, pardon me, sorry, Mr. Flack, if they've changed from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So if you can provide ones that you've done before the pandemic and now, I'd just like to see how our federal government has adapted these agreements given the new economy that we're living in now. I did want to ask a little bit, Minister, about funding for women specifically. I know this is a theme of today's HUMA committee. In Manitoba specifically, we have 7.1% women unemployed compared to 1.5% men. So it is impacting us quite significantly. Now, and we know that 1.5 million women were immediately laid off in the onset of the pandemic. 500,000 remain unemployed, and 100,000 have just left the workforce altogether because there are no jobs available to them. So I'm quite concerned about this. As you know, in the last 30 years, my lifespan, all of those gains for women in employment have been wiped out. So I was encouraged, but then discouraged by a recent announcement by your government to formulate an 18-women task force to sort of inform your government of how to sort of handle this. It's a women-led task force, which I appreciate, but I was disappointed to see that none of the industries that have been most hardest hit, particularly dominated by women, we're talking service industry, retail, accommodations, personal services, none of them have voices at that table. And I'm just wondering if you had input in this task force and if you're disappointed that none of these industries dominated by women and dominated by the employment losses aren't represented in this task force.
Well, thank you. From the beginning, we have put a gender lens on the decision-making that we've done, the benefits and supports we've provided. And also we have, as you have clearly watched, how women have been both frontlined and sidelined by this pandemic. And I am deeply concerned and share your concern on this. The commitment that we made to create an action plan for women in the economy, which will be guided by the task force that you're talking about, we attempted to have a broad representation into this group. It was not my lead, but I did provide some input, and I'm happy perhaps to work with you online to see if the gaps you identified we could maybe bolster, or happy to do that for sure. Again, understanding not my lead, but happy to facilitate that.
Yeah, because I know your department, as you well know, provides the bulk of the supports for those who've been laid off. So I know you're very, very aware of that they're women dominated, that these are the industries that they come from. So I was just surprised that this task force that was announced to quite a bit of fanfare, I have to say, did not include any representation from women-led industries that have been hardest impacted. So I wanted to encourage you very strongly to reach out to the Deputy Prime Minister and perhaps recommend that she ensure there is representation from these industries. I am very concerned about women-led industries.
I will definitely follow up. I give you that commitment.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Ms. Doncho. Next, Mr. Long, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. And thank you, Minister, again for your regular availability to this committee. We really, really appreciate it. And Minister, I just want to say it's refreshing to work with somebody like you who is as passionate about her portfolio. The pleasure to work with you on the Accessible Canada Act C81 in the last Parliament, which is transformational legislation. Again, thank you for your commitment. But Minister, I do want to take to just talk about CERB. And I know MP Gazayan talked about CERB with respect to poverty, and I think we all know that, without CERB, hundreds of thousands of Canadians would have fallen into poverty. So, Minister, my question is this. When the Canadian economy shut down due to the pandemic, it was evident that the employment insurance system was not able to handle the volume of claimants that would be applying. And I think all of us at MPs could certainly attest to that by the calls we were getting into our offices. As our government launched the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB, to support Canadians who are unable to work. This benefit ended up providing direct financial support to more than 8 million Canadians, ensuring they had the help they needed to pay their bills and support their families. I will be blunt, it was shocking to me, especially amongst Conservative members, that stated that the CERB was too generous. What would have happened if our government had not taken action to create the CERB? Thank you, Minister.
Well, great question, and absolutely, the EI system wasn't set up to respond quickly or to the number of workers that we wanted to help, which is where the birth of the CERB came from. And we were there for over 8 million people, workers who weren't able to work because of COVID-19, and ensure they had income support. COVID, we knew would impact workers who lost their jobs. We knew it would impact workers whose childcare or day program options weren't available. We knew it would impact workers who got sick or had to self-isolate or quarantine. And those were the guiding principles for the CERB. Those were the impacts that we wanted to kind of lessen the blow for working Canadians. And they didn't have work, but they still had bills to pay. They still had mortgages and rent and food and medicine. And we felt that our government was better positioned to carry the weight of this non-discretionary debt that would be incurred. Because if we didn't, Canadians would use their credit cards, they would use their lines of credits, and we would see more bankruptcies, more mortgage foreclosures, et cetera. And like the financial pressure and insecurity would weigh heavily on the families who are already living in isolation and uncertainty. So we chose to incur this debt so Canadians wouldn't have to. And that was key to ensuring that when the economy came back, Canadians would be able to fully participate. So I could never be convinced that the CERB was too generous. And judging by the number of times I heard, and you probably heard the CERB called a lifeline, I believe Canadians are incredibly grateful for this support.
Yeah, and Minister, certainly I'll echo that. I mean, certainly in my constituency office here in St. John Rothesay, the calls I would get from, people that simply didn't qualify for EI or benefits were running out, that, to think that, the other party was saying that it was too generous. I mean, these were people that couldn't literally afford to buy groceries, pay their rent, and so on. So I think we can all agree that the CERB was a lifeline for really, like you say, 8 million Canadians. Now, Minister, I want to switch just to the CRB. When the CERB ended, a large portion of recipients were transitioned to a simplified EI program, but some were ineligible for EI benefits. And again, all of us had those calls at the office. As a result, our government created 3 Canada Recovery Benefits to support Canadians, to support them join the transition. How many Canadians have been helped by the recovery benefits in total?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the CRB is about 1.75 million Canadians as of February 27th. The sickness benefit is around 411,000, and the caregiving benefit around 343,000. So a significant number, and that's not including the millions on EI.
Right, and I mean, I think we can all realize what would have happened without the extension of those benefits. So we all got calls. Certainly, I had calls into this office of people that were certainly desperate. I mean, their EI was running out. They didn't have other options. So again, these benefits were a lifeline to Canadians, and that's what a good government does. A good government delivers benefits that Canadians need, certainly in times of crisis. So thank you for that, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Okay, thank you.
Suite, Madame Chabot, pour 2 minutes et demie.
2.5 minutes, Ms. Chabot. Minister, you talked about the importance of training and skills. I'd just like to point out that in the main estimates have decreased by $20 million to not-for-profit organizations, Aboriginal organizations for illiteracy skills and the increase in skills. I don't think that the walk is following the talk when it comes to that. If I understand your question properly, it's during the pandemic, there were organizations that did not use the money that they were provided with. Perhaps Mark can comment on how we decided to giving them this money in future, if I understood you correctly. But the question is that there has been a $20 million cutback, and I have worked with literacy organizations for adults, and I know that this assistance has dropped. But it's essential to have this in order to develop skills in adults. We see what's happening. We need to develop these skills to enable these people to get to be able to requalify, retrain. I fully agree with you, but I don't know what the exact answer is to your question. So I'm going to do some follow-up with you following this meeting. So I can ask you another question, I believe. On page 2 of the main estimates, with respect to benefits for sickness under employment insurance. And you said earlier to my colleague from the NDP in answering a question about the 15-week time, so we should expect that maybe or maybe not. Now you haven't made any decisions about implementing 2 issues that were in your mandate letter. Yes, this will be in the future employment insurance plan, but we haven't made a decision as of yet, but we don't know when. The when will depend on other issues, so we haven't decided on the when. Thank you, Madam Chabot.
Please, for 2.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Minister. In the speech from the throne, your government committed to building a more inclusive tax filing system to make it easier for Canadians to receive the benefits they need. The problem is that approach actually excludes the most vulnerable people in Canada who don't file personal income taxes due to various reasons or various barriers, such as lack of identification, having a SIN number, immigration or citizenship status, a CIA account, or a fixed address. This is a major problem that leaves people in deep poverty. Canada Campaign 2000, in their 2020 report card on child and family poverty in Canada, calls on the federal government to research and develop a parallel community-based benefit eligibility and delivery system for low-income, marginalized non-taxpayers, as many jurisdictions have done around the world. Minister, will your government commit to developing such a parallel system?
Well, thanks for the question. I think the purpose behind the commitment to make the tax system more straightforward was to address some of the barriers you talked about. As you can appreciate, CRA not being my lead, I have, though, heard from many people with disabilities and advocacy organizations about the barriers to tax filing and the consequences for them in terms of their eligibility for benefits and support. So we have been working very closely with disability organizations to assist in getting taxes filed. In, as we have the system we have, we've been trying to make it more accessible and inclusive, including the efforts that were made to bolster the eligibility, or the access is a better word to say, for the DTC related to the one-time payment. And I was quite pleased with the uptake for that, because that opens the door right now
Minister,
for a number of projects.
Campaign 2000 has indicated that it still has a lot of barriers. Moving on, how many Canadians were shut out of the federal government's benefit delivery system during the pandemic because they didn't file a personal income tax? How many?
I'm not sure I understand, because the benefits I was responsible were not predicated on having filed your taxes. You could, through attestation, access those benefits. So,
well, how many people?
That's your time. But if you want to finish your answer, go ahead, Madam Minister. We don't have time for another question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's all I had to say. Sorry, thank you.
Great. No, all good. Thank you, Ms. Gazan. And next, we're going to go to Ms. Falk, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, for being here today. I just do want to mention and get on the record, if the Liberal government, your government, truly cared about the experiences of Canadians and the most vulnerable in this country, this government would have rejected the Senate amendment on C7 that expanded MAID to those that have, or those that are struggling with mental illness. And I think history will teach us down the road that this government wasn't there for the most vulnerable. Speaking in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that it's exacerbated the staffing crisis in our long-term care homes, and it's also exposed a greater degree the shortage of the healthcare professionals specialized in care homes for seniors. And with an aging population, the healthcare demand is only going to grow, and without immediate and short-term action, that gap is going to continue to grow. Your updated mandate letter prioritized direct investments in the social sector, as well as training and incentives to grow sectors of the economy and to restore jobs. So, Minister, can you clarify how your department's spending is addressing the healthcare staffing crisis in seniors supports, if at all?
Well, thank you. And absolutely, we've heard about the healthcare human resource challenge. I don't know a stronger word than challenge. And one of the first things we did last fall was invest in the training of personal support workers. I think 4,000 people across the country will be trained as personal support workers to help provide some of that bench support to the long-term care and healthcare sectors. Certainly not enough, and certainly as we invest in training moving forward, that is going to be one of the priority sectors for our sectoral investments. And the Minister of Health and her provincial colleagues are working on a path forward that, of course, I'll be supporting through our training investments.
Do you have an update on that program thus far to what has happened?
Can you give us an update, Graham?
In terms of exactly how many have been trained, I think we're getting reports back. So I think we'd have to get back to the committee with the details on the latest.
Perfect. And Mr. Flack, you will get back to us with that information?
Yes.
We'll make sure of that, yes.
Thank you. And I guess what metrics are going to be used to measure the success of this program in particular?
Again, for accuracy, let me get back to you with those details.
Okay. Is there are you guys also able to get back to us just maybe the enrollment regionally, even across Canada, if there are, the differences regionally?
For sure.
Perfect. I guess another thing too that I would like to just make mention, Minister, when you were in committee to speak to SUP-Bs, discussing your government's commitment to train
the new workers.
Yep.
You had mentioned at that time in a response to one of the committee members that you were hoping to professionalize these workers, which are the personal support workers.
Yeah.
And I know from conversations with the Canadian Support Workers Association, this is a priority for them. And there would be many benefits to the professionalization of these workers, including improving the standard of care that our seniors would receive.
Yep.
Minister, is there any work underway to provide professional recognition to support workers in Canada?
My understanding is that the Minister of Seniors and the Minister of Health are indeed working with the sector to create standardized credentials, acknowledgement. There's a massive amount of work underway. It's not top of mind for me, but again, Graham could tell you more detail if that would interest you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
So again, Minister, we're going to have to get back on the details because it's health is.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flack. And so, Minister, are you having any conversations with provincial counterparts regarding professionalization of personal support workers at all?
One of the positive results of this pandemic has been the number of times we talk amongst federal and provincial colleagues. I talk to my employment colleagues regularly, and the topic of the professionalization and the depth of field, or kind of the bench support we need to build in this country around personal support workers is definitely a topic. As we talk about training, we talk about specific sectors that would benefit from direct investments. We talk about different jobs that will be needed more in the future as our population ages. So we talk a lot about a lot of these things, and part of the investment in training through provinces is that they have the proven track record of understanding what's going on in their regions and are able to respond more nimbly to the realities on the ground, I guess is the best way of putting it. But absolutely, we're having those conversations. We've been having them for months in terms of understanding the complexities of what's ahead of us to bolster this sector.
Wonderful. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. Thank you, Minister. The last round of questions goes to Mr. Vaughan, who's going to lower his mic down in front of his mouth and take 5 minutes.
And that wasn't my 15-year-old crying in the background about the lease.
That's why I was giggling. Sorry, Adam.
That's all right. Just a couple of quick questions around the Service Canada sites that were raised. I just want to confirm that the Service Center site, the Service Canada site in Kildonan, St. Paul, which I believe is at the corner of Red River Boulevard in Maine. I think this is a picture of it. Can you confirm that Service Canada site is in fact open today?
Laurie?
Yeah, I can confirm that Service Canada site is open. I haven't called there today. However, I believe it is. There are days that we do have closures due to
my understanding, people are walking in all out day. It's across the street from another office at Red River Boulevard in Maine. I believe it's MP Dancho's constituency office. It's right close to the River Grove Shopping Center. Is that the same site we're all talking about here, that it's open? She can see it from her constituency office, and it's been in fact operating since the fall?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, so it hasn't been closed today. Just wanted to confirm that. And in terms of the disability pension, sir, how much time do I have left? I don't want to be cut off here.
About 4 minutes.
Yeah, I had about 3 minutes and 52 seconds. Just making sure we're on the same time here. I just want to inquire about the structure and the challenge we've had accessing a database of people with disabilities. Prior to COVID, there was no single database of people with disabilities under control of any one department at the federal government. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct, and there still isn't.
Right, but through COVID, we've managed to start to build that database, and that's the platform from which we may be able to strengthen support for people with disabilities through CPP or other pension supports. Is that the platform you're now working with?
Yes,
and
that's it.
And in terms of the challenge with enrolling people in that database, the best system we have still is the CRA, the Income Tax Act process, because that has the strongest computer system, but also the widest coverage in terms of Canadians. What are we doing to make sure that people who don't file their taxes, people who don't think they need to file their taxes, or for principled reasons don't in terms of their treaty rights and responsibilities? We've worked very hard in the Canada Child Benefit to enroll this community. What are we doing to make sure that our database is complete, as broad, as effective as possible?
Well, great question and really important. So we're working with disability organizations, and a good example would be the British Columbia Aboriginal Network for Disability Society, BCANS, is kind of the lead in BC to really reach out to organizations and encourage and support applying for the DTC. Families who have kids with disabilities, if they apply for the DTC for their child, they'll have access to CCB, disability. As you said, it's the best system we have. It is highly, problematic in terms of its outreach, but for now, we've really tried hard to get deep into community through community organizations and other relationships and partnerships, even non-traditional ones, to get people help to apply for the DTC because of how many doors it opens up for people federally, regardless of whether or not you actually have sufficient income to benefit directly from the benefit or the tax credit.
Okay, how much time do I have left, Chair?
A minute and a half.
I guess the next question around the disability process. During the rollout of CERB, one of the things we saw were some governments, BC as an example, but also Ontario, they clawed back their disability pensions to low-income Canadians, even though they knew that they had disabilities and even though they knew they were experiencing challenges. When we move forward, is there any what confidence do you have that governments that don't want us to spend money supporting Canadians, but rather provide tax credits for people who have already earned dollars, that sort of boutique tax credit that we saw define a previous government in Canada? How confident are you that we can get the provincial governments to still support people with disabilities as we move forward with stronger investments to both alleviate poverty, but more importantly, give people the platform in their lives to succeed and thrive as Canadians, despite the fact that they have been marginalized through no fault of their own?
Well, thanks for the question. Absolutely. We were frustrated by the behavior of some provinces who chose to claw back the CERB, and consequently, people didn't see any kind of increase in their monthly income. And, we made efforts, and some provinces moved on this, including my own, actually, of BC, to not claw it back. And a guiding principle moving forward with a disability benefit would be, hoping to build upon the success with the Canada Child Benefit. This will be tough. This will be the most difficult and complex negotiation related to this benefit. Will be working with provinces and territories to ensure that people are better off because of this supplement, that people's access to services, programs, supports isn't in any way negatively impacted. I don't want to be in a position of giving someone a benefit that consequently causes them to lose their health care or pharmacare. We're very alive to that. A lot of work is being done behind the scenes to work with provinces to understand the interplay of our systems, but this will be the most important aspect of, in my opinion, of the CDB negotiations will be in the conversations we have with the provinces. I'm cautiously optimistic. That tends to be my personality, but it will be a very tough conversation, and we're going to have to get quite creative to ensure people are better off because of this.
Can't think of a better minister to be on the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. Minister, that concludes the questions for today. I know that you'd be keen to receive more, but we'll have you back for that.
I understand I'm coming back soon, so yes, at some point to talk about the future of EI. So
yeah,
I look forward
Minister,
to it.
We appreciate you making yourself available during the constituency week. It wasn't something that was foreseen, but something that was necessary because of the matter being referred to us by the House that we dealt with last week. So thanks to you and your team for being with us and for handling the questions on SUPs and mains, and we'll see you again soon in connection with the EI study.
Thank you, Chair, and I will endeavor to get you the answers to those questions as soon as possible, the information that we've committed to providing. Thank you very much.
And thanks to your team. Colleagues, I'd like you please to stick around. We actually have to vote on the estimates yet, but to the officials, you're welcome to stay, but you're free to leave. Thank you once again for being with us, and we'll see you again soon, no doubt. Okay, before we wrap, folks, there's a couple of things that we need to do. First of all, with respect to the supplementary estimates, the last three, the parliamentary schedule indicates that we're going to have the last 3 allotted days the week that we come back. The deadline for reporting the SUPs, based on the schedule at present, is therefore Monday, which presents a bit of a problem for us because we have Minister Schultz coming before us on SUPs on Tuesday. So this isn't insurmountable, but what I need from the committee is an agreement that we report the SUPs on Monday, that we leave the invitation for Minister Schultz outstanding, that she can come in and speak to the SUPs as a subject matter study, even though they have already been reported. We will not report the mains because we don't have to until the 31st of May. Even though we've heard from 2 ministers on mains, we still may want to hear from Minister Tassi. We'll hear from Minister Schultz on mains. So with your, if the committee agrees with this approach, I would suggest that we proceed to vote now on the SUPs, that we report the SUPs on Monday, that we hear from Minister Schultz as a subject matter study on Tuesday, and that we report the mains before the deadline of May 31st. Is there any clarification, any discussion, any concern with that suggested approach? Excellent. That being the
Sorry,
case.
Mr. Chair, I've just had my hand up for.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead, Ms. Doncho, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, a couple of things. The Conservatives are fine to report the supplementary estimates to the House. That's fine on our end. I don't know, I can't speak for other opposition parties. I also just want to thank you, Chair, for arranging this during a break week. I know that there wasn't agreement from all parties before to do that, so I just greatly appreciate you making the effort to ensure that happens this week to accommodate the very tight schedules of ministers and the House. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Full cooperation. So thanks to everyone, and most certainly to the ministers who helped to ensure that this happened as well. So thank you, Ms. Doncho. So I believe then we have consensus to proceed as I had suggested. That being the case, we will now move to a decision on supplementary estimate C. So the first question for you is, shall vote 1C under the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation carry? Do we have consensus to carry vote 1C?
Mr. Chair, Conservatives are fine to pass on division.
Okay, it's passed on division. Shall vote 1C under the Department of Employment and Social Development carry?
On division.
Carried on division. Shall vote 5C under the Department of Employment and Social Development carry?
On division.
Carried on division. Shall vote 10C under the Department of Employment and Social Development carry?
On division.
Carried on division. Shall vote 15C under the Department of Employment and Social Development carry?
On division.
Carried on division. Shall I report the votes on the supplementary estimate C 2020-2021 to the House?
Yes.
carried.
I'd like a recorded vote on that.
Okay, Madam Clerk. We have a recorded vote on whether I am to report the votes on the supplementary estimates to the House.
Mr. Dong,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Miss Young,
Yes.
Miss Doncho,
Yes.
Miss Falk,
Yes.
With me.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Viss,
Yes.
Madame Chabot,
Oui.
Miss Gazin,
Yes.
10 yeas, 10 pour. Oops.
I declare the
Almost
motion
10, 11.
carried.
Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Viss.
I just, again, we've had so much great cooperation on this committee that I just encourage you when you report these estimates to say how well all political parties, again, on the HUMA committee are working well together, because the Liberal rhetoric just doesn't stand up to the great cooperation we have on this standing committee. Thank you, sir. Great job today.
Brad, shall we all take a screenshot and attach it to the report?
Very positive.
Okay.
I love the positivity.
All right, we need people to get on with their day. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adjourn the meeting?
Don't tempt me.
Is it the pleasure of the committee to adjourn the meeting? I see
Yes, it is.
consensus. We are adjourned. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Viss.